Greetings and welcome to episode 9 of Zooming into Focus, a podcast that explores and highlights the research and training developed by the Virginia Commonwealth University Rehabilitation Research and Training Center on the Employment of Persons with Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities project. I'm your host, Lucian Friel from VCU RRTC. On this episode, our guests are Dr. Joshua Taylor and Dr. Holly Whittenburg, joining us from Washington State University in Pullman, Washington. Josh is an associate professor of special education with his PhD in special education from VCU. This is his 5th year as a professor, and he has more than 20 years in education as a former special education teacher and autism specialist. His research specialty is in implementing transition policy into practice. Holly has her PhD in special education as well from VCU. This is her 6th year as a professor, and she has worked as an employment specialist, special education teacher, and special education administrator. Her research specialty is in employment-related interventions for youth and young adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. They are both a part of Research Study 3's Tech Prep intervention, and they, along with their colleagues, recently launched a first cohort of the online Tech Prep course for students with IDD, and they're here to talk about it. Welcome to the podcast, Holly and Josh. It's good to have you on board.
Thanks, Lucian. It's excited to be here and talk a little bit about Tech Prep.
Absolutely. It's one of our favorite topics in projects.
So as I mentioned in the opening intros, both of you were here at Virginia Commonwealth, both as students and as employees. I'm wondering, this transition to another coast, another state, what are some of the differences between Washington and Virginia? And we'll get into some of that later on in the podcast as well as far as this course goes. But what are some of the differences between Washington and Virginia that struck you the most?
Well, I'm at this time of year, Lucian, I'm missing my VCU basketball, I'll tell you that. WSU, we had one good season my first year here, and it's been pretty rough. So I miss those games in Siegel for sure. But it's great out here, lovely. We're just getting a little warmer. Jealous about that Virginia weather, though, for sure.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that I will say that that is out here, that's one of my favorite things about being out here, is this thing called fry sauce. So you dip your French fries in it. Best that I can understand, it's a little bit of ketchup, a little bit of mayonnaise, and a little bit of magic that makes this like delicious dipping sauce for fries. If we can figure out a way to like transport that recipe back home to Virginia, then I think that might be a lucrative side hustle. Best that I can tell. So yeah.
That is excellent. We will have to get that recipe over here. So without further ado, let's jump into the content of this podcast. We'll start, in episode 4 of the podcast, we talked to Dr. Tansey, the principal investigator of Study 3, and he gave us an overview of the overall study. But we'll start with you, Josh. Can you give us a little background information about this Tech Prep course that you all are doing? What is it? What are some of the topics that are covered? Those types of things?
Sure, yeah, and I'm sure Tim covered this in depth, and would definitely recommend, if you haven't already, checking out that podcast episode. But this really kind of grew out of a problem that we're seeing all across the country, where young people, particularly with IDD, are just not getting opportunities to engage and try out cutting edge jobs that are in line with their interests. And what we know from the research is that we're going to have more success, and it's not complicated or hard to understand. We're going to have more success in careers if we're engaged in it, if it uses the things that we're good at, our strengths. And so this really kind of grew out of this issue of like, hey, we need to get folks opportunities to try out stuff that they like doing, and particularly in these new jobs that maybe didn't exist 20 years ago. I mean, certainly when I was coming up and going to college, nobody was talking about being a content creator or sitting on a podcast, right? Like we are now. And so, really giving opportunities for folks that are hungry to kind of try out applying what they're good at, what they know, and what they can bring to the workforce. So I think that's a big part of it. So within the with what Tim shared, we've kind of replicated what Tim was doing with his team at Wisconsin, Madison, and Chicago public schools. And you'll hear from Pete and Ashley a little bit later about their Virginia site. We're one of those two sites out here in Washington, really trying to replicate, use that secret sauce that they found over those first 4 or 5 years, applying tech prep, and seeing if it works out here in Washington State. And so far, folks are really excited about it. We've got some great feedback. We've had our first cohort go through the course, finish up now. We've got the second group kind of going through, getting started in week 2. They're coming in with some great energy. So we'll talk a little bit later in the episode about internship development and working with some of those businesses. But the course has just been fire so far, and it really kind of gets at helping, our students kind of learn about what are those options that are out there that, those jobs, like I said, that didn't exist 5, 10, 20 years ago related to content creation, like what's happening within graphic design. It's not folks kind of sketching out old Madison Avenue, ads anymore, right? It's using, digital software and things like that. Robotics, cybersecurity, some of these fields that folks wouldn't have thought about, and giving them a sense of like, what does a day in the life look like with some of those jobs? Then on the other side, the piece we know from the research is this population of folks, it's not the hard skills that trip them up in terms of getting jobs and keeping jobs in these areas. It's some of those soft skills and social skills. So, impression management, working with a team, problem solving, critical thinking, professionalism, these things that are really kind of key to kind of navigating working, not just in the tech field, but really in any kind of workplace.
That's excellent. What a overall like encompassing course, it sounds like. Holly, how did you all recruit people to be a part of this study? Were there any specific requirements, and how many participants are going to be taking part in this course?
Yeah, great question, Lucian. So we are, with like much of the research that we do here at WSU and that VCU RRTC does, we do it in collaboration with our community partners, right? So to identify and kind of find youth and young adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities who might be interested in this study, we've been partnering with local school districts. We've also reached out to our department, our offices of our department for vocational rehabilitation, and that's the state agency that helps people with disabilities find and maintain employment. So we've been going through them. We've been working with our kind of local offices for our Developmental Disabilities Administration, which provides long-term supports to people with intellectual and developmental disabilities across the state. And then we've also been working with those community-based organizations, right? Supported employment providers, independent living and advocacy organizations to really get the word out. And here's the word that we've been spreading, right? Is that if you are a youth or a young adult between the ages of 16 and 24, and you have an intellectual or developmental disability, so this both includes intellectual disability, it includes folks on the autism spectrum, other developmental disabilities, and you are also experience an additional barrier to employment, because that's something that's a core part of this project as well. Is we recognize that having a disability diagnosis can limit access to some of these tech fields and careers based on the research, but we also know that other barriers to employment can get in the way too. So we want to really, that's that kind of the population that we're targeting, and then we've been reaching out and talking and seeing if folks are interested in joining us. Between the two cohorts, Josh mentioned, for this project, we have a fall cohort of students who are participating in the online training, and then a spring cohort of students who are participating. Between those two cohorts in this first year, we've had 10 students thus far who've been a part of the project, or a little over 10 actually. I'm kind of under.
We got 12. Yeah.
12, yeah. And then as we move forward through years 3 through 5, we anticipate that we'll have 20 students a year who will be a part of the training and the course. So, and then that's going to be replicated across the work that's being done in Virginia as well. So over that time, we're anticipating that we'll have another 120 students who participate in the course and in the internships that go along with it.
I love it. I just want to jump in and just to kind of echo what Holly said about, like, part of building those networks and that team and getting to work with some of our state agency partners and school partners. One of the coolest things about recruitment so far is you work in these projects and you hope that you make a positive impact, and the folks that you're working with and providing this for see the value in it. But like when you get folks that reach out and say like, hey, somebody in my school went through this and this sounds really cool, I want to be part of it. Or like, hey, one of my kids' friends' parents told me about this, or my kid's teacher told me about this, and this just sounds perfect. Like, how can I learn more? How can we be a part of this? Those are the parts of recruitment that I think just are really, as a researcher and somebody working in the field, just really you want to hear. And so far we've had some of that of just like, hey, the excitement's growing, and we're having folks that come out and just want to be a part of the program, which is really cool.
That's
And
incredible.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd also say what wasn't in that description was that like you gotta love tech. Like that's not part of it,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Like it's great. And we have several participants who are very much interested, but we're also interested in reaching out and connecting with those students who maybe don't know what they want to do or haven't had an opportunity to explore tech or aren't sure about it. We know that a lot of these kind of career exploration and awareness activities are really about building exposure and building experience and getting to learn a field that maybe you don't know anything about. And maybe you'll love it and maybe you won't, right? But knowing whether it's something that you would want to learn more about and or it's not the path for you and you want to try something different, both of those experiences are equally valuable in kind of figuring out your career path after you exit high school.
Sounds like an incredible opportunity for anybody that knows they want to be in tech, and also for people who might not, and then who knows, they might find something that they do like. What types of information are you and the participants getting out of the course, right? Like what are some of the things that we'll get into sort of some of the highlights and stuff that you've noticed so far, but what types of information are you all hoping to get out of the course?
Yeah, so I think for students who are participating in the course, what they're really getting is kind of, and Josh kind of alluded to it earlier, but kind of like this two-prong piece, right? Like they're getting to explore and become aware of different careers in technology, and honestly, not just to become aware of them, but to think about like how those align with their strengths and interest and preferences for work, right? Like, because that's really key and important. It's not just like, oh, is this a cool job or I'm interested in it, but how does this align with what's important to me? How does this play into my strengths? How does this play into like my preferences for like the kind of work environment or work setting or the types of work that I want to do? The other thing that I think that our participants are getting out of this too is just, really kind of thinking about what are those core foundational skills that you need to be successful at work. We're thinking about some of those soft skills or professional skills in the context of technology careers, right? I can't think of a job in tech where like strong communication and interpersonal skills isn't necessary, right? Because so much of it now is being done in teams and or customer facing, right? So thinking about that. Um, so how much like essential it is like to have good problem solving skills, right? So to know when you need help or to know when things aren't going well and to be able to reach out and to know who to go to. Um, Also, a lot of technology careers involve iterative projects, right? Where you're kind of like, we do it and then we do it again and then we get better at it and then we do it again. So being able to kind of accept and take in feedback and apply it, another critical skill. So that's some of what our students are leaving with. I think the other thing that I think about too that's interesting is part of what we do in the course that I really, really love is really talk about disability in work, right? And what does it mean? Like, so we talk a bit, and we have this really rich dialogue around thinking about what does it mean to be a person with a disability? How has that affected your life, right? For some students, this might be the first kind of conversations that they've been having about it. For others, this is an ongoing dialogue that they have, they've really kind of thought through and can articulate it well. So by like kind of listening to each other and dialoguing with each other, I think there's some pretty deep, rich understandings that's kind of coming out and things to think about in terms of choices around disclosure, choices around support and accommodations. What happens when you encounter bias in the workplace, right? Like these are all parts of the course as well. For us on the other side, as instructors and researchers, I mean, this is just, I think what we're learning is specifically around some of the information that we're seeing is really kind of think it's contextual, right? Like, so we know the field knows stuff about workplace readiness. The field knows stuff about kind of career awareness, but being able to like kind of think about it and investigate it through that technology focused lens is pretty new and pretty cool.
We hope you're enjoying this edition of the podcast. If you have any questions for us, you can head over to idd.vcurrtc.org/ask to submit your questions. One of our technical assistance team members or our training team members will respond back to you. If you have questions about anything related to employment for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, you can submit it there. Or if you'd like to be connected to some of our different training options or some of our different resources, you can also ask your questions there. And now back to the podcast. Josh, is there anything in particular that you've learned so far from this first cohort that you'd like to share with us right now? We don't want to get into too many spoilers. I know that there's going to be, the big reveal at the end when you all publish your research. But is there anything interesting right now that you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, like one of the biggest ahas is just how much like this like issue and how tech prep is kind of situated in like solving a problem like really resonates with the people that we've interacted with so far that have been part of the study of like they're like, heck yeah, I want more opportunities. Like I feel like I'm not getting those just in the normal offerings of like or in the conversations about work and career. Like folks are feeling like, and some of them have expressed like, hey, I tried this internship and I think it was a good internship and like it was well designed and it just wasn't for me. Right. And so I think like folks so far have really been like, yes, this is situated in a space that like it is addressing a problem that's real for me. And so that's been really just cool to like talk with folks and interact with it. The other thing that kind of Holly touched on with the disclosure is just, I think there's just not enough spaces. And, as a former special educator, I feel like I can say, like, we kind of shy away from talking about disability and like the lived experience of having a disability in ways that are really counterproductive and really both do a disservice by not like talking about the logistical process of like what does it mean to like ask for accommodations or when to disclose or things like that, but also just kind of building a sense of community. And that community part has just really been at the core of like what we've seen so far. I mean, I see Holly nodding her head and just like both in terms of like folks who are like, yes, I want to be a mentor, like how can I stay involved and engaged in this because this is an awesome program. I love this group of folks. And then also like, hey, y'all want to exchange phone numbers and emails because like this is the kind of community that I want in my life. And I mean, Lucian, you and I know like how hard it is to like cultivate adult friendships as fellow fantasy football veterans, right, buddy? And we'll have to ask you how the season went after we get off the episode. But like that sense of community is so valuable. And I think it's that kind of came organically out of some of the conversations that were structured in the course. I think just made it really special.
Well, I will put it on record that I did win this past season, so that way it's at least somewhere in the universe.
I felt like queuing you up to put that in the public record. Congratulations, Champion Lucian.
I appreciate that a lot. Well, we talked about the information that you all are getting out of the course. What are some of the goals of conducting this segment of the research?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a couple things, and I'll try to get too nerdy, but you put a researcher in front of a microphone and you get what you get. So, I think a lot of it's trying to figure out what the secret sauce is, what works and why, and how can we refine it and make it better, right? So, what we're getting at is, evidence that supports the efficacy of it, so that we can hopefully spread it, to other communities around the country. As I think this hits on not just a Spokane problem or a Hampton Roads problem or a Chicago problem, but something that young people with disabilities are facing all across the country. And so we want evidence to be able to go into this community and say, hey, we've got something that works, and it works because X, Y, and Z. Under the hood, it really gets at changing folks' participants' kind of views and perceptions of their own abilities and their what's called self-efficacy, right? So it builds on this idea of social cognitive career theory that gets into like not just sort of changing behaviors, but changing how folks kind of feel about, think about their relationship with work, their relationship with, what the potential they have autonomy and to have choices about how they go about their careers. So, I think we've seen a little bit of that. It'll be really interesting once we kind of look at the data and look at what participants have shared with us about those experiences, kind of what we see in there and how those things change as they have these conversations, as they engage with the course, as we get into the internship, how that all played out.
Holly, have you received any feedback about the course from this first cohort that you can share with us? Again, no spoilers.
Yeah, yeah, no spoilers. Well, I think the first piece, Lucian, was like, I honestly like they kept coming. They kept showing up. This is an after school online training, right? Like students went home, left school, went home, got in front of their laptops, their tablets, their PCs, and logged on and joined us twice a week for 10 to 12 weeks, right? So I think the first thing that we were kind of, you go into this hoping for the best as researchers, but you never quite know. And we had such strong attendance from our first cohort of participants in the course. So, I think one of the takeaways that we heard from them when we asked explicitly about it was that like we like this. It's interesting. It's fun. I like connecting with people that I don't know and or that I knew back in middle school because it's community, right? And getting a chance to meet them again and hang out online, as Josh mentioned. The other part I think is that the course is specifically kind of designed to both be like rich content but also like pretty interactive activities. So there are a lot of kind of, okay, well, we're talking about, working as part of a team. Well, then we're going to do some role plays and we're going to walk through some problem solving scenarios together and kind of figure out what that looks like in the workplace and what do we do when things go wrong? How do we know if things are going wrong? How we know if things are going right, et cetera. So the other feedback that we got from participants was really that they enjoyed those opportunities to kind of do the interactive pieces. And along with that, kind of the online active, our course connects students to some really rich sites as well, where they can go and learn more about different careers in tech. And they really enjoyed some of those exploratory activities too. I'd also say, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say it, that, we did a pretty great kind of waiting for class to start playlist. That seemed to be a big hit as well. K-pop Demon Hunter and Taylor Swift figured prominently for this first cohort of students,
I
but
would say it was a collaborative playlist. That's this important
it
contextual
was.
information that Holly is leaving out. Like we did not curate the playlist.
We
We
did
we,
not.
we accepted submissions.
That's right.
That is excellent. I mean, sounds like it's super engaging. The fact, I mean, if it's engaging, right, they're showing up and they keep on coming, like you said, Holly. Josh, what are some of the things you all are looking forward to as the course and the study progress?
Yeah, I mean, how I kind of touched on earlier, like like the partnerships. I mean, those have been some of the greatest is that getting to work with our schools, with VR. I mean, certainly with our students. We've recently brought on a new community rehabilitation provider partner that Holly and I have actually worked with before on another research project that Holly led related to like using technology, like actual technology to expand the reach of providers into rural areas and try to cut down on some of the travel time. So we've worked with them before. They're fantastic. And it's really going to be kind of working with them to develop as internships. And so we really want, part of what I think is part of the secret sauce of this is that part of like, how can we connect folks with careers, jobs that they're interested in? And so to do that, we need some business partnerships. And so right now we're kind of hitting the pavement, talking to businesses in Spokane, drumming up, interest on that side, similar to what we did, kind of getting recruitment excited about the course. And we're getting some great feedback so far from businesses, but really excited about that matching and seeing our participants and students that have been through the course, work out in the field, get a paycheck, kind of experience, getting to apply some of what they learned in the course, kind of with us after school over the course of the last couple of months.
That's awesome. I as we've been talking about all of this too, I know we've got this going on in Washington and in Virginia, and I know that Dr. Tanzi had done it in Wisconsin, I believe, or Chicago.
Chicago, yeah.
Is the hope, and Dr. Tanzi kind of touched on this a little bit,
Hmm.
but the hope, right,
Yeah.
is eventually that this could be something that, goes across the entire country, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got some work to do before that to manualize is what we call a fancy researcher term, basically to kind of have it be kind of turnkey so that folks can come in and say, hey, how can I get trying to trained up to deliver this, the same way y'all did with Fidelity, we call it, to be able to kind of take this on the road. But yeah, I mean, that's the goal of anything that we do is to have as much positive impact on some of these thorny problems of kind of underemployment of folks with disabilities across the country.
And that may lead into our next question here, or actually will lead into our next question. Holly, what do you think the benefits of this course are or could be for the field of disability employment?
Yeah. So that's, gosh, big one, Lucian. That's a big question. Yeah, but a good one and a thoughtful one. I really think that kind of thinking about some of the work that Josh and I have done around pre-employment transition services and um, creating opportunities for high school students to engage in kind of employment related transition services and activities. I think what's really kind of interesting and special around tech prep is its focus on careers in technology, right? Like, I think we know very little within the field of disability employment um, around the participation and engagement of people with IDD in tech careers. What we know right now is that those rates of engagement are very, very low. But what we don't know is how do we change that? And tech prep, I think, creates an avenue for early career exploration and early career awareness and early career experiences in technology that could potentially be really transformative for students as they think about is this a career that I want? Is this a career that I love? And then what do I need to do to get there? What do I need to do to achieve it? And what kind of career opportunities exist for me, right? So I think that kind of narrowing of looking specifically around technology, because we know that these are careers that typically pay well, that have opportunities for advancement and have career longevity. Um, that's a really, really important thing as we think about expanding opportunity for youth with IDD.
Yeah, those sound like awesome benefits, Holly. Finally, and Holly, you can jump in on this as well. But Josh, where are we going from here? What is next for you all in the study, and what do we have to look forward to?
Well, and I don't want to give you too much, Lucian, because I'm hoping you'll have us back. But I think next time we'll have to bring our team here at WSU is growing. We've got a great doc student, Angel Bonilla, that we're bringing on to kind of lead our instructional team this cohort in the spring. We just started second week with that second group, so that they're a great group so far. Really enjoying getting to know them, and they're kind of hitting the ground running with the course content. When we come back, if you'll have us, we'd love to talk to you more about how those internships are going, some of those business partnerships that we're building, and just kind of how it's all coming together. We're already getting recruitment for next fall, so there's the interest is out there, and yeah, we're just really excited to see kind of how this plays out over the next few years, and we'll certainly keep you in the loop if you'll have us back on how things are going.
Absolutely. Love to have you back. I think it's already scheduled out. I don't think that you know that yet, but on my little
Fantastic.
calendar, I think I've got it penciled in there.
All right.
Perfect.
We've zoomed into focus on your tech prep course out in Washington. And on the next episode, we'll be talking to Pete and Ashley about the same type of tech prep course in Virginia. Is there anything you can kind of give us a little insight on that? Anything that you've heard from them?
Oh, Pete and Ashley have been great to work with. It's really been just wonderful to get to kind of share ideas. Pete's really been helping to kind of to adapt the course within the Canvas page, and that's been super helpful and just kind of help us coordinate between sites, share what's working. I know they've had some great success that Ashley and Pete will tell you all about with some of the students and how they've responded to the content. I remember Ashley mentioning a student that didn't know anything about cybersecurity that was just like, just psyched about it after learning about that in one of the modules. And so I'm sure they'll tell you all about it. And they've had some really great success in the Virginia site.
Excellent. Well, thank you both for joining us today. Really enjoyed having you guys on, and come back and join us soon down the road.
Looking forward to it, Lucian.
Absolutely. We'd love to.
And thank you all for joining us today. The contents of this podcast were developed under a grant from the National Institute on Disability, Independent Living, and Rehabilitation Research, NIDLR grant number 90RTE M0013. NIDLR is a center within the Administration for Community Living, the ACL, Department of Health and Human Services, HHS. The contents of this podcast do not necessarily represent the policy of NIDLR, ACL, HHS, and you should not assume endorsement by the federal government. Again, thank you for joining us.